G'day guys, Steve with Broken Sprocket. In this video I'm going to go through the proper procedure to adjust your chain properly on your dirt bike and how important and crucial it really is to the handling and long-term performance of your bike and what can go wrong if you don't have your chain adjusted properly. So let's get started. Okay, the first job is to loosen up your axle. 32mm socket on this bike to loosen up the axle. Now with the axle loose, we need to take these adjuster bolts and the adjuster lock nut and loosen those. You will need a 10mm spanner and a 12mm. 10mm for the bolt and 12mm for the locking nut. First crack the locking nut. Now that it's loose, wind it back a little. And now you can easily wind this adjusting bolt in and out. There's one on each side, so we need to do both of them. Now with everything loose on the bike, you should be able to move your wheel in and out with relative ease, making this chain go tight and loose. Okay, the previous owner of this bike was running this chain too loose for quite some time by the look of it. And you can see here where the chain has been whacking on the swing arm as it's riding because it's too loose. Now this can come a big problem. Your chain can come off your sprocket, which this bike has had to happen. And you can tell that it's happened because if you look here, you can see this is where the chain has gone in between the sprocket and the swing arm. That's because the rider had it too loose and the chain got jammed in between here. Now that would have been a major problem. It can also damage your sprockets and your hub if that gets jammed up in there. And as your chain breaks and goes flying through the bike, it can also come up into this area and go through your casing, cause all sorts of damages with the broken chain. So that's what one problem is with a chain that is too loose. So what happens when the chain is too tight? One, the wheel is hard to turn. Two, you have heaps of strain and stress on this chain, on your sprockets. This hub would have a lot of stress on it. Also your axle. A chain that is too tight will also have a lot of pressure on this drive shaft, which could damage the shaft or the casing or the bearings that are holding this all together. If the chain is too tight, the bike suspension also has problem compressing. It makes it much harder as the chain pulls on these two sprockets here, and it stops your suspension from working correctly. Now let's adjust this chain. I start with the wheels slightly forward and I have the chain too loose. The reason I start with the chain loose is because I walk the wheel back by pushing this axle block, and you'll see these lines here in the swing arm. There's also a line in the axle block, and you adjust these using your adjuster screw. And I have the axle not completely loose, but just so it's just binding just a tiny bit, but it can still easily be moved by adjusting these adjuster screw onto the chain block. And you have to go both sides and do them evenly so that your wheel stays true and your chain will also remain straight and square. So we go to the other side and we also keep this one winding at the same rate as the other side. And as we do it, we check the tightness of the chain. Now what I'm aiming for is 3 fingers behind the chain slide for the correct adjustment. Now I have the chain at 3 fingers, which is where I want it. You'll see the chain is not too loose that it doesn't hit the swing arm. It's not too tight either. Now that I have the chain at the adjustment that I like, I just run a rag in here, which pulls the axle up against these blocks as best it can do, and then I tighten the axle up. According to the owner's manual, we need 72.5 foot-pound of torque on the axle nut. and tighten the axle. There we go, that's it there. Tighten our locking nut on both sides. Remove the rag from the wheel. The lines on the adjuster blocks on both sides should be even on both sides, and that should ensure that your chain is running true and square to the bike and not running at a funny angle. So that's a good way. If the chain's going in or out, it will wear your chain and sprockets out much more quicker. And also your rear wheel won't be running true to the bike as well, which can affect the handling. I know there are people out there that will say, but what if my fingers aren't as big as yours? Well, you can see here Suzuki's measurements. It's between 40 and 50 mils at the bottom of the chain. So we'll measure that and have a look. Okay, because it's not an exact measurement, it's between 40 and 50 mils of movement. I'm going to call this, start at 60 at the top part of the chain there, if you can see. Move it up. And it goes to about 25. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 45 millimeters, which is pretty much right on where you would want it. Now with the chain adjusted, it's a good time to talk about maintenance on the chain. How I normally clean my chain is when I'm washing the bike, I normally just gurney into the chain really good and get all the grit and grime out. And then I let it sit overnight and let it dry out. All the water can dry out and such like. Once the chain is dry, I just get some chain spray, chain lubricant, and I spray it in. Normally just in where this section here is, here where the chain guide is, and I just spray it in. This bike's chain is now adjusted correctly, and it's also lubricated and ready for the next ride. Hey, watch this video next, or go to the Broken Sprocket video library and choose another top video. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. After all, it's for free and guaranteed to make your day 20% better. If you're already a subscriber and you're having a bad day, just think it could have been 20% worse. You can also follow Broken Sprocket on Instagram. So, I'll see you in the next video.